This presentation is going to take about 60 minutes. So that's the prepared time. So I'll go on full throttle and talk about something that I love. I really love. It's the gramophone world, which comprises of the gramophone, the machine that plays the record, the gramophone record. It's a revolving platter and produces the sound from a flat disc record. And as many of us know, the gramophone record contains shellac, and we need a needle to play and extract the sound from the grooves. And these records could be typically one-sided or two-sided, and it could have speech or music or publicity material. And typically the duration would be 80 to 300 seconds, and the sizes could vary from 7 inches to 12 inches. So we talk about the gramophone and the gramophone records, the 78 RPMs as they were called, because they were playing at 78 revolutions per minute. And this was something that Berliner standardized in 1898. But before that, we had Edison. And in 1877, Edison started this whole revolution of recording sound. Now, typically you see here is Edison's photograph on a cylinder. And this cylinder is a paper cylinder, which actually houses the cylinder, which is the wax cylinder. The wax cylinder is the one which has a sound recording on it. It's got grooves. And this typically looks, the blue cylinder looks like a chudi, so which it was nicknamed chudiyan. And that carried on to the gramophone record, and many people to date call it the chudi baja, as in these wax cylinders were mistaken for the flat records. The flat records were mistaken for the for these wax cylinders and called chudis. So it's very interesting how the cylinders started. This is another box which housed the cylinder made by Edison. So around the turn of the century, we had many people dealing in the sound equipment, maybe wax cylinders or disc records. Before, we had the Rhythm House. If you remember Rhythm House at Rampart Row, the big store, I'd love to go there. And before we had such stores, there were lots of distributors and dealers, and particularly in a progressive city like Mumbai and Calcutta, there was T.S. Ramchandra and Brothers and Vallabhdas Ranchod and Company and Vallabhdas Lakshmidas and Company at Elphinstone Circle. There was H. Bose in Calcutta. So, and S. Rose and Company was a very big dealer of equipment and gramophone records, again at Rampart Row. Then the Dada Phonograph Depot, also known as the Dada Phone Talking Machine Company, Britannia and Company in Kalbadevi, Electric Phonomart in Kalyan Bhavan, Kalbadevi, Empire Phono, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you a little brief outline of how I'm going to go about today's talk. And then we carry on with the talk, having said about the point that we came from wax cylinders, moved on to gramophone records. Now, today's story is about a monopolistic conglomerate and its rivals, and this is in respect to gramophone records of Indian repertoire and with Bombay as the main backdrop. We are going to overlook the importance of Calcutta, because this is a very abridged version of the gramophone wars that took place. So the major action actually took place in two cities, that is Calcutta and Bombay, and also Lahore, Delhi, and Chennai were part of the wars. But I'm going to highlight today the whole story vis-a-vis Mumbai, and the emphasis may be on some old Bombay areas where there were record companies, there were record dealers. So coming to the story, most of the labels were manufactured abroad, and the disc production in India was very, very limited in 1900, where my story is starting. So most company were selling records because most of them were of foreign repertoire, and very little Indian repertoire was available around 1900. So now we come to the hero of our story, that is the Gramophone and Typewriter Limited. This is a company I would refer as GCI, which took the name GCI because of Gramophone Company of India, and later on HMV. So we know this company very well as HMV. The dog and the horn monogram is one of the most well-known monograms of the world. So our heroes here, the Gramophone and Typewriter Company, which was formed in 1898 in England, and in 1901 it establishes the Indian office. And in 1902 we have them recording for the first time in India. They are recording the first record, contrary to their claim that it was Miss Gohar Jan. Their first recording in India was Miss Soshimukhi and Funny Bala. They were dancing girls, and it's very interesting to see that at that point in 1902, we had a lot of Tawayef influence. Most of the music was either performed by dancing girls or singing courtesans, Tawayefs, and we had the Ustads who were singing classical and devotional music. So folk music, devotional music, and classical music was the order of the day. Here is the famous Tawayef Janki Bai of Allahabad, alias Chappan Churi. And if you can see onto her right, that is our left, there is a little metal cylindrical thing popping out just above the tabla. That's right. That is the microphone. So the microphone is nothing but a cylindrical horn which is used to pick up the sound and then envelop that sound, capture the sound into a master disc. You can see the recording room is nothing but probably just a hotel room, and Janki Bai, the famous Tawayef, is a very highly paid artist. You can see her in all her finery, and this is the way the recordings were done in these makeshift rooms. We see another Tawayef, the famous Miss Gohar Jan of Kolkata, and you can see the horn again protruding out of that makeshift wall. The horn is next to Gohar Jan on her right. She's seated in a recording session with her musicians. There is a pan ka dibba also, and there is a peekdan also, interestingly. And her book, she was a very prolific composer and could sing in 13 languages. So it was very interesting to see that there is no microphone, but these recordings are known as acoustic recordings. And we will hear a sample of the times. We'll go and hear an audio sample. Note that the Tawayef is going to announce her name at the end of the record. Can we have the audio playing, please? So what we are experiencing here is the mahal, the ambience, the the environment in which all these recordings were done. Here it goes.
10-inch record.
My name is Ustads and Baijis of Bombay.
So I'm going to go chronologically so that we know the whole story, the way it happened. 1902, and we see that a big player, Vallabh Das, Ranchhod Das and company, is importing gramophone goods, and they have their own brand, which is the VL brand. Yeah, that was the Goharjan label of the gramophone concert record. Yeah, coming back to Vallabh Das, Ranchhod Das and company, the VLO phone records, and they were selling their equipment in India. And there were a lot of takers because, as we know, British occupied India. There were a lot of demand for these goods, not only Indian records, because Indian records were just beginning to surface, but a lot of foreign-made records were doing the rounds. Our story is concerning the Indian records and the war. We see that the Gramophone Company of India is very young, and it's getting competition. In 1904, we have the London-based artists in their repertoire. They have Ms. Gohar Jan, L.C. Bural, Pyara Sahib, Maujuddin, and the Nicole Record Company initially made on cardboard, and they go on to shellac, which is the material that most other records are being made out of. We also see in 1904 that Singer record is introduced in India, and the Singer record is the company Singer Phono and Record Agency is based in Churchgate Street at Fort, also having an office at 10 Kalbadevi, and the wonderful Indian mascot, the peacock, can be seen on this record label. This is the paper label that is stuck onto the record, and they are beginning to compete with GCI. And 1906, we can see the competition hotting up from Becca record label. Again, is very interesting. The mascot is the stork listening to the horn, the music emanating from the horn, and with their help, with the help of Vallabh Das, Ranchhod Das and company, Becca is making wonderful recording sessions in Mumbai from 1906 onwards. And Becca is really going places because they are contacting a lot of Indian artists and recording them. They also have the artists like Bal Gandharv, the veteran in theatre music, in their fold. They have recorded him, and this Natya Sangeet Samrat is going to sing for us let us hear the wonderful recording of the great Bal Gandharv. It's 1906 and the competition is really, really hotting up. We have the James Manufacturing Company based in England, and they have an office at 407 Kalbadevi, and they are getting their records hand pressed for the first time in India by the Wellington Company. And the Wellington company is situated in the Kalbadevi area. I don't know if some of you have seen, but opposite Metro Cinema in Mumbai, there is Wellington Hairdressers. And that's exactly where the Wellington Cinema was situated. And the war is really hotting up because the James Opera record is also in fray. We don't hear a track, but we see two musician angels. This label is rather faint because I have copied this from a book by a very renowned writer, Michael Kinnear, and a lot of research is also based on his book, and this is rather faint. In 1906, we also see a worldwide giant Odeon enter India, and their labels can be seen, their songs can be heard. 1907, the war is hotting up with T.S. Ramchandra and Brothers, a firm which started in about 1851 and is a veteran in gramophone records and equipment. They have launched the Ramagraph label, and they are situated at 40 Bapu Kote Street, very close to Kalbadevi. Very interestingly, the label launched by T.S. Ramchandra and Brothers is called Gramophone. And Gramophone is just sounding like gramophone. So we have the GCI, the Gramophone Company of India, file a suit against this company, and the suit, the loser is of course T.S. Ramchandra and Brothers, who have to modify their name from Ramaphone to Ramagraph. You can see on this green label, the words Ramagraph has been, the sticker has been placed. The words Ramagraph is actually a sticker. So these records were published as Ramaphone, and because they lost the case, they had to put stickers. So another victory for Gramophone Company of India. And these records are typically recorded in England, later on in Germany also, and they have fantastic artists. They have good artists like Master Himmat, whose label we can see now, a very popular artist. The great Chanda Karwakarin, Shishya of the great Ustad Nathan Khan Sahib, and Pyara Sahib, another very prolific artist. Let's hear an audio clip at this point. We will hear a comic item coming from Murad Ali. In these times, theatre was very, very popular, and these type of spoofs and light-hearted comedies was the order of the day. Murad Ali coming up, audio clip.
पैसा पैसा पैसा, जर की मोहब्बत जर के तकबे, जर तो जग में खार है। जिस जगह पर देखो यारो, जर से बेड़ा पार है। सारी पैसे की बहार, पैसे से कारोबार, पैसे का प्यार, पैसे से यार, दार ताबेदार। कर हो कोई जमार या हो कोई कुमार, पैसे हो चाटो बेशुमार, कहलाए इज़्ज़तदार। पैसे की सच मोहताज हो यशा।
Paisa was very, very important, yes. And also for the Gramophone Company of India, where they were not knowing what to do, but they were scheming. And in 1908, we see that there is another entrant to spoil their happiness. Pathe is an old player, and Pathe is come into India in a big way in these shellac records, 78 RPM. They were, of course, playing at a higher speed, but Pathe is in 1908 in a big way in India, and they have an office at 15 Elphinstone Circle. Another label which is spoiling the happiness of GCI is Phonophone, launched by the Gramophone label. And in 1908, something happens. The Sialda factory of the Gramophone Company of India is set up and the production starts, which means that till now, Gramophone Company of India was sending all the recordings to England, getting them pressed onto records and getting them back in India. Not anymore, because the Sialda factory near Kolkata is manufacturing. So their manufacturing becomes in-house. 1909, the competition is really, really hot because the Sun Disc Record Company of England. So Pathe is very much in, and also is the Sun Disc Record Company, now at 143 Kalbadevi Road, recorded in Germany and England at 2 rupees. It is the cheapest record in India, and that is driving GCI nuts. We're going to hear a small audio clip, and this audio clip is from the Sun Disc record. It's about the mass entertainment of the times, and we'll see in a very theatrical style how the hero of the piece is telling his beloved that I'm going to take you for a bicycle ride, a ghoda gadi ride, and all types of enticements are thrown in. But does she agree? The audio clip, please.
पानी के तमाशे में गाया हुआ गाना साउंड रिकॉर्ड। मैं अपनी बीवी को मनाता हूँ मगर मानती नहीं है। फकत 3 चीज का वादा है, एक तो खाना पीना और कपड़े लत्ते और आबरू। ये 3 चीज नहीं है, बाकी सब कुछ है। लो सुनो क्या क्या देता हूँ। घोड़ा गाड़ी में दिखाऊं, बाबो बाड़ी में फिराऊं, घोड़ा गाड़ी में दिखाऊं, बाई निकल के फिराऊं, घोड़ा कर ले। मान जान मान जान मान जान मान जान। घोड़ा गाड़ी में दिखाऊं, बाई निकल के फिराऊं, घोड़ा कर। घोड़ा गाड़ी में दिखाऊं, फोटो
So we have in 19. Yes, that was quite the Aati Hai Khandala of those times. And bicycle, yes, of course, was new at that point of time. So you had very interestingly the Nayak bata raha tha ki yes, I'll take you on the bicycle. 1913, we see that the James Opera label is exiting. Here's the record jacket portion of that company. And this company, mercifully, less competition for GCI, is exiting. 1914 is the entry of records made by Velophone. And this company has started its own manufacturing at Mughal Lane, Mahim, and it's giving competition to GCI. 1914 also sees the start of the First World War, and that means that a lot of things are changing. So the Singer label is out. The Odeon label is also out of India, which means less competition. And in 1915, we see that is introduced. If you see this particular record label at the bottom, that angel, which is sitting on most of the earlier records, has now come down from its top position. It's on its way out, and the famous HMV label is introduced. The dog and the gramophone label, the Nipper the dog, his master's voice label has been introduced in 1915, and they want to compete and capture the Indian market. 1919 sees the end of the World War, and we are going to hear the wonderful singing voice of a very important musician of that time. And this musician is known by the name Pyara Sahib. Let's hear his voice, and then I'll talk more about it, about what has been. My name is Pyare. That's Pyara Sahib. And that female sounding voice is actually a male singing in falsetto. And that is the famous poet Iqbal's poetry. Chino Arab Hamara, Hindustan Hamara, Muslim hai hum watan hai, Sara Jahan Hamara. It's a variation of Sare Jahan se Acha, Hindustan Hamara. And this is the kind of fueling of the creation of Pakistan, Iqbal's poetry, and Pyara Sahib going on record singing the poetry, asking for a separate state. 1924, the World War has ended in 1919. 24, we see that the Velophone company is really, really doing well. And the company is doing great guns and big competition for GCI. That's the Gramophone Company of India. You can see on the jacket, the record jacket of the Revolving record, nice graphic of the family enjoying records for children, records for adults. At the bottom, there is a needle box. There is also the monogram of Revolving records. And the company is just growing stronger, much to the disdain of Gramophone Company of India. So what does the Gramophone Company of India do? 1927, they launch the twin label to finish off Revolving and his cheap records. The Gramophone Company of India, with its new factory at Dum Dum, Kolkata, is launching the twin label to get rid of the competition. They are reissuing their own records now, which were priced higher on the twin label. This is the record sleeve of the twin label. And see how beautifully it is done. Again, you have the family sitting down and listening to records. And you can see how it's nice to listen to records. And they want to finish Velophone, they want to finish Ramagraph, and Velophone does another smart thing. They sign on Pyara Sahib. We just heard Pyara Sahib from the GCI recording just a few minutes back, and they are trying to compete left, right, and center with GCI. 1929, the stock market crashes and impacts Velophone very badly. Odeon is back again after the World War I. We see there is entry and fresh competition again for GCI. And now the Dum Dum plant of GCI is making electric recordings. I mean, electric gramophone records, which means that earlier we saw that the horn was being used. Now they have microphones being used as the recording media, and the grooves are a little different, and the sound is much broader and much more pleasant to hear than the earlier records. So they are coming out with new techniques. The world over, the technology is improving, and GCI is also trying to pull up its sleeve and give a very tough fight to all the labels. 1931 sees the merger of Gramophone Company of India and another rival, that is Columbia. And Columbia has thankfully now merged with Gramophone Company of India. Less competition, and HMV, the label, is in a more strong position to take on with the competition. But hold on, 1933, and the Musical Products Limited, based in Madras, is getting back with 2HMV on its most pet product, the Gramophone record. And the Musical Products has launched its own label, the Broadcast label, and this record is manufactured in England, plays longer than the Gramophone record of 10-inch. At a 10-inch Broadcast record plays for almost 4.5 minutes, and it's got some really good artists, very highly reputed and classical stalwarts like Ustad Bundu Khan, Gyanendra Prasad Goswami, MS Subbalakshmi, Kesarbai Kerkar on their repertoire. And they are giving a very tough competition to Gramophone Company of India. Their label, if you notice, has a diamond over the Broadcast signage, they have a diamond which is shining. That's because the founder of this company, who's pumped in a lot of money into this venture, is Jaisanglal Kisharlal Mehta, and his company deals in diamonds. 1934, also Odeon company is absorbed into HMV, and we see that the competition has changed its the way it's happening in India. And in 1935, the Velophone label has lost its luster. But 1935 sees the emergence of a new competitor. Located in Vadala is a new manufacturing plant. Now, we must realize that the manufacturing activity in India is very, very restricted. Just a few plants that Velophone had, GCI has in India. Otherwise, all the recording plants were outside India. They were just labels coming in. Now, in 1935, a very nationalist Gujarati by the name of Dulerai Pandya has opened a new factory in Vadala. This factory is manufacturing gramophone records under the name of National Gramophone. And 1936 sees that this factory is inaugurated none other than, I'm going to let you guess whose voice it could be. Let us hear the audio recording, and then we shall talk more about National Gramophone Company. Very interestingly, this company is here to give a very tough fight to GCI. Let's hear who came to inaugurate National Gramophone.
The problem of India, we find that essentially it is the problem of removing poverty and unemployment and the building up of a political and social order which removes all obstacles and hindrances from the path of freedom and progress. This removal involves political freedom, for without the power to shape our destiny, we are helpless victims of external forces which keep us down and exploit us. Political freedom thus becomes the primary objective without which we cannot advance materially in any direction. But behind that lies the real urge, the urgent necessity and desire to solve our problem of poverty and unemployment, to raise the standards of our millions, to remove illiteracy, to build up our industries, to get out of the iron grip of vested interests, and to rid India of the numerous ills which inevitably follow foreign domination.
That's right. That was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who came to inaugurate the factory, because Dulerai Pandya was a nationalist, and he said, why? Why should we depend on foreign products? We should have our own production. And if gramophone records were such a popular media of mass entertainment and class entertainment, why not have our own factories produce it? So he took the help of the Japanese, and his label, the Young India record, you can see the flag in as a part of the label, and he said I should have complete Atmanirbharta, and this is the National Gramophone Company in 36 driving the GCI nuts, because here is a record company having its own manufacturing plant, and they could give a run for the money to GCI. Also, we had Shantaram, V. Shantaram, the music, the great film director, on board of National Gramophone Company. Till then, National Gramophone Company was not printing records, pressing records for the Prabhat Company, of which Shantaram was a part. But we shall see what happens in the coming years. With the coming of National Gramophone Company, we get so many other players in the market, like the Bombay Record Company comes in. So these are labels which just piggyback on an Indian manufacturer. They were at loggerheads with GCI. So you can see at the bottom, recorded and manufactured for the Bombay Record Company by National Gramophone Company. And so many companies like these, like an offshoot of Bombay Record Company, the Friends Record, situated, again, you can see the address, 62 Dadi Seth Agyari Lane. That's where the recording room was also situated. So National Gramophone Records is manufacturing, and these are just the marketing companies with their own labels. So very interestingly, we can see that the National Gramophone Company is giving tough time to the rest. In 1936, very interesting things happen. Films are being made in a big number and they're getting popular, talkie films. And HMV or GCI gets into the idea that production of film music is a fantastic idea, and the records start selling widely. So in 1936, you have Main Ban Ki Chidiya Ban Ke Sang Sang Dolu Re, which sparks off their imagination, this runaway hit, and they realize that there is a lot in this new genre called film music. So they focus slowly, 36 onwards, onto film music. National Gramophone is not lying low, and they are making records for smaller labels like King Records, the Jai Bharat Company, then also for the Rainbow Record Company. I'm going to play a track. This track, the music is by the music director Naushad, and the voice is by Kawal Muhammad Ishaq. And then we'll talk about this Rainbow Record Company, on whose label this track is.
वो अपनी जुल्फों को रुख से अगर हटा देंगे, घटा से चांद निकलता हुआ दिखा देंगे। शबे फिराक में नाले अगर बुलंद हुए, जमीन कैसी है ये आसमां हिला देंगे। क्या जाने तूने साके कैसी मुझे पिला दे, क्या जाने तूने साके कैसे मुझे पिला दे, क्या जाने तूने साकी कैसी मुझे पिला दी। तकलीफ दर्द उल्फत दिल से मेरे भुला दे, तकलीफ दर्द उल्फत दिल से मेरे भुला दे।
That was music director Naushad, and the Rainbow Record Company was co-owned by music director Naushad and Banatwala. So it was a label, again, thanks to National Gramophone, such labels like the Rainbow Record could function. Let's hear another track from Rainbow Record. Today is Janmashtami, and this track pertains to Janmashtami. It's a drama in Marathi. Small excerpt coming up, audio clip.
हा गेला कुठं? गेलेला घरचं काम अगदी नकोच झालाय. रोजच्या सारखा स्टेजचं काम थोडंच आहे की कसे भागून घेता येईल. गोकुळाष्टमीचा उपास. रोजच्या सारखी आज काय चहाला बिस्किट चालणार आहे थोडी. वऱ्याचे तांदूळ, खजूर, बटाटे, रताळी सारं आणायला पाहिजे असं अण्णा म्हणाले. आणि रामा गेला त्या गोंधळात. उजाडलं नाही तूच गोकुळाष्टमीचा कोण गोंधळ गावात. तरी बरं दारू बंद झाली आहे म्हणून, नाहीतर कोण आला आहे?
माले, मी मुद्दाम तुला बोलवायला आले. आमच्या घरी नेहमी आम्ही गोकुळाष्टमीचा उत्सव करीत असतो. रात्री ये बरं का आमच्या घरी.
खरंच का तुझ्या घरी कृष्ण जन्म होतो?
हो.
मग देवकी वसुदेव तुझ्याच घरच्या जेलमध्ये असतील. नर्सबीर सांगितलेस का? रात्री देवकीचं पोट दुखलं तर नको का जवळ कुणीतरी. शिवाय कृष्णाचा जन्म कंसाची भीती आहेत.
थट्टा काय करते? भाविकांचा तो उत्सव असतो. कृष्ण जन्माचं महत्व तुझ्यासारख्या सुधारकीत हाताने वागणाऱ्या सुधारकी विचारांच्या मुलींना काय करणार?
मग कृष्ण जन्म तुझं रात्री व्याख्यान अगर प्रवचन कीर्तन काहीतरी असेल की नाही?
मी माझ्या मैत्रिणींना बोलावलंय. आम्ही गाणी म्हणून करमणूक करणार आहोत.
That was 80 years back, and we could hear what was the preparation for Gokulashtami, not an ordinary day. 1939, the World War II has started, and the Japanese technicians have fled from India, and problem for the National Gramophone, which was giving such tough competition to the GCI company. 1942 and the Japanese advancement in India, probably the Dum Dum factory may be acquired by government. Oh, problem times for GCI, and they acquire a plant in Amritsar for manufacturing records, and young India is also into troubled times, not knowing what to do. War times, difficult times. 1945, the war is ended, and 1947 is when independence has been accorded to India. Shantaram has defected to the Gramophone Company of India, and the Young India label is further slipping away. And 1948, Mahatma Gandhi is no more, and all the record companies, all the labels are in a race to pay tribute to the great man, and they're all producing records left, right, and center. But good times for the Gramophone Company. The HMV label is really doing well till 1953. We see the Music Masters Limited launch their label Bulbul, and Bulbul, based at National House in Taluk Street, Apollo Bandar, is here to give tough times. The Bulbul label is amongst the first LP producers in India. Contrary to what we may think, the company produced the first vinyl record in India. And this was made, yes, very much in Bombay. This company by the name of Plastic and Industrial Corporation. And it used to manufacture plastic plates, cups. And 1953 has seen the emergence of a competitor for GCI. Let's hear an audio clip from a recording made by this company, Bulbul, by one of the greatest musicians of the last century. Coming up.
ब्रिज की नंद लाला राधा के सांवरिया, सभी दुख दूर हुए जब तेरा नाम लिया. ब्रिज के नंद लाला राधा के सांवरिया, सभी दुख दूर हुए जब तेरा नाम लिया.
Wow, that was the one and only Lata Mangeshkar singing for music director Roshan. That was a film song. And 56, we see that the National Gramophone Company struggling is at the end of its life. and it's really tough to get this company to go on, but they're dragging on, and they've kind of stopped producing records anymore, which is a big, huge relief to GCI, HMV. 60s, we can see that his master's voice label is just leading on and getting into so many products, getting more and more popular in India. Their film record sales are just going up and up, and they have so many schemes. Their film records, I mean, if we take, for instance, this record from Mughal-e-Azam, this label, the film record is released on the Dog and the Gramophone label. And when they have the Naat, Khuda Nigeban Ho Tumhara, from the same film, the Dog and the Horn label is not used. They have the Angel label used. So they don't want to offend any sensibilities. They're very marketing their products, as we discussed earlier. The Twin label is also working with them. The same releases are being released on Twin for a much cheaper price. The same very song, the same very rendition by the same artist, but it's cheaper. So they are using every trick to keep themselves getting in big money, and they're getting into all the genres, and they've captured the imagination of and the hearts of all the listening public of India. And the gramophone record era, which is the shellac record, comes to an end in the 1970. Their last production of the gramophone records, I'm not talking about the vinyls, the gramophone records are the known material known to us. We see that it ends in 1970, and that is their triumph. It's triumph for HMV. They have held sway for so many years. It's been a tough fight, but they have virtually had monopolistic years, and it's time to say goodbye with one of their last recordings of HMV on the gramophone shellac. Let's have the audio, please. Acha, so this is my goodbye to you with this track.
तो हम चलते हैं, अच्छा तो हम चलते हैं, अच्छा तो हम चलते हैं, अच्छा तो हम चलते हैं.
That was the record at the end of the groove. Thank you for listening, and we can take questions.
So we have a lot of positive comments coming in, of course, for the lovely talk as well, Kushal. So thank you so much for that. The first question I would like to take is from Kevan. He says that any remnant of the first ever recording in India?
Yes, a few friends, like my good friend Sunny Matthews, has the very gramophone record, which I mentioned the name Sashi Mukhi and Fani Bala, and they're very much there. So it's available. But the company has touted Miss Gauhar Jan as the first artist to be recorded, and it's okay. They like to latch on to something more glamorous. Miss Gauhar Jan was one of the most known glamour pusses of the era, and why not? Sashi Mukhi was just an ordinary dancing girl.
All right, thanks. Farokh, would you like to take the next question then?
Yes. The recordings that you played in the beginning, I think that was a real wow factor. One of the questions which came in was all the voices of that era, and the question was about the 1910s, 1920s, sounded very androgynous. Is that because of the nascent technology at that time, or was that the style of singing?
I'm sorry, can you elaborate? What did you find in the recordings? What did you
The recordings from the 1910s and the 1920s, the very early ones, the observation was that the voices sounded very androgynous. You couldn't really make out whether it was a male person or a female person singing. So is that because of the nascent technology at that time, or was it on account of the style of singing? That was the question.
The answer to this is the technology available, because as you noticed, the horn was the microphone. So
Correct.
all the capturing of the voice was done by the metal horn, and
Okay.
this was not the right way to capture a voice. So the voice loses its spectrum. The voice does not. If you talk on a telephone, the spectrum is very, very less. The spectrum as recorded by a horn would be even lesser.
Okay.
So that's the way it goes. So you
So
couldn't
it was
make out,
a result.
you can't make out, whether it's a male or a female, etc. Yes.
This is a question which was in my mind. If the Gramophone Company of India released the same music under two different labels, what really was the differentiator? Was it the price? Was the technology? Was there a different kind of?
The price. They sold the other label at 2/3 of the price.
All right. I was logged off for a brief moment, and when I came back, I heard you talk about Gohar Jan versus Shashimukhi and Fani Bala. I guess that is answered by your observation that Gohar Jan was the more known one.
Yeah.
But is there any remnant of the first ever recording in India? Was a question from Kaiwan.
Yeah, Farokh, that's been covered.
Yeah. All right. And would we know where Nicole Record Company was located in Parsi Bazaar Street?
Yeah, we may be able to get the address. There are a lot of addresses available. In fact, one of the big researchers on Indian recordings and records has been the late Michael Kinnear, and we all refer to him.
Okay.
So he has documented a lot of things which we should have been doing all these years.
Okay. Is there any specific reason why Kalbadevi became the hub for all of this?
Yeah, Kalbadevi was the business center, and actually I had drawn a map. I've forgotten to put the picture, and I'd hand drawn it to show that there were so many companies in Kalbadevi. So the entertainment via gramophone became a very big industry by itself. So this is why the race for so many companies to get in this manufacturing and then having their own distributors and dealers. And Kalbadevi became not only a hotbed of manufacturing activity, there was also the distributors and the dealers and the marketing companies situated in Kalbadevi.
Okay. When you were talking about Pyara Saheb, you mentioned that one company signed him on from another recording company. So the question from James was, did the different labels have exclusivity contracts with their talents?
Yes and no. So in the earlier times, they didn't have the contracts so rigidly following the contract. They did have contracts because we have copies of Zohrabai's contracts which date back to 1909. So they did have contracts, but they were clever to find a loophole, and they would use that, or artists themselves would get swayed and etc. So these kind of tactics have been happening all the time. You had Jagjit Singh as an artist of and suddenly you have Music India release Jagjit Singh album. And they do it very cleverly because they disguise it as a film album, as if he's been signed for a film. So they find little loopholes, and this is happening all through,
Are there any interesting legal cases in that connection of one recording company stealing or appropriating a talent to themselves?
Yes, it happens all the time. There are many, many cases. So
even in that era.
Yes, even in that era.
Great. One of the urban legends that we keep on hearing is that the first ever gramophone recording in Mumbai happened in the town hall. Would that be correct?
No, that's not right.
That's not right. So where would you think the...
Most of the stories that we have heard, they have come from one company, that's GCI HMV. So whatever they have officially proclaimed has been doing the rounds, and they have been advertised and given a lot of publicity. All these other companies are dead. They've all been here for some for 3 years, some for 10 years, some for 30 years, and they've all gone away with no trace. Like nobody knows about National Gramophone Company at all. Nobody knows about Bulbul, which gave the first.
But you know about it. So tell us a little bit about how your passion in this started. I'm sure a lot of our audience would be interested in knowing that.
Well, gramophone for me is very special. I think I was born with a gramophone record in hand. And whenever I hold a record, I feel the electricity going through my body. So it's some very different kind of connect for me. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to me now will recollect the time when they held records, and when, you know, records were like their lifeline, or they loved playing records. So for me also, that journey started with gramophone records, and still I do claim to be possessed by a good 7,000-8,000 gramophone records. So knowing about gramophone records, listening to them, and then getting to know about the journey is really my trip. If it answers the question.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I've got a few private messages which said that that it was a fascinating. I mean, for you to talk about it. You just bust one urban legend about town hall and the first ever recording. There's another one which has been doing the rounds about George Harrison from the Beatles having recorded for the Gramophone Company office at PM Road, you know, the corner of Mocambo Restaurant and Kabashi Patel Street. Would that be correct in your research?
I'm not. I cannot say for sure. But there are written accounts about it.
Okay. So I couldn't say this because I was locked out for a brief minute. But when you were playing the music, the passion on your face and the rapture, in fact, was so evident when I was looking at you in the video. So I think that puts an end to the questions that we've had so far.